Mhm.
And we are live for the Steelers Depot Monday live stream here on Monday, November 15th. As always, I am Alex Kozora. Appreciate you guys being here, hanging out with Dave and I, answering as many Steelers questions as possible. I imagine there are quite a few of them after the Steelers Week 10 16-16 tie against the Detroit Lions on Sunday, pushing Pittsburgh to 5-3-1. So again, if you're new here, Dave and I answering as many questions as possible. Feel free to send a super chat if you would like to have your question be guaranteed to be asked and answered and move to the front of the line. Dave, how you doing?
We need a entry song or something, don't we?
Mm.
Happy Alex and Grumpy Dave or something like that, or Facebook. Welcome to this week's Facebook or YouTube, not Facebook. YouTube live session there. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm just deep in the tape right now and getting. It's a lot worse than obviously the all. I mean, than the TV copy and all.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. So be sure to stick with Steelers Depot for film reviews and just a full analysis of this game throughout the rest of the week. So again, Dave and I here till the top of the hour, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, answering your Steelers questions and a lot of news on a busy Monday, headlined by Minkah Fitzpatrick testing positive for COVID-19 and heading to the reserve COVID list. He could come back for the Chargers game. We'll miss probably most, if not all, of this week's practice, but a path for him to return Sunday night, as is the case for Ben. So let's get into the questions here. And again, just a
How are
heads up,
you doing, Alex?
hanging in there day by day, surviving and advancing. But yeah, I had mentioned this for whatever reason for the YouTube chats. They seem to go away on my end if they get like sent in hours ahead of time. So try to send them closer to after 6 o'clock, I would say. But our first question comes from Mutated Genome, who says, "Would Spillane play any worse than either starting inside linebacker?" At this point, I get the question because of the run defense issues. I think there's a lot of layers to why the run defense struggled, but I get the instinct for that. I will say I think Spillane's a lot more of a downhill player than Devin Bush, and I don't want to absolve Joe Schobert from this either. I think we focus a lot on Devin Bush, and some of that's rightfully so, but Schobert has not been particularly good either. So to answer the question, I don't know. What do you think? I'm going to punt and pass it to you, Dave.
I mean, what's the question? Basically, should they turn to Spillane more?
Essentially, yes.
I mean, I would consider it, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, you've got a first round draft pick there that you're heavily invested in. That you've got to hope can work through this. I think, and obviously a little bit more athleticism than Spillane would have. And I mean, look, Joe Schobert, as you mentioned too. I mean, as we see in the all 22, there's a couple of guys that are in some wrong gaps, and it doesn't look like Schobert's innocent throughout this game as well. So I mean, I'd be more apt. I don't think you're not going to make it with that much of a positive. I don't think that move and get that much more of a positive out of it. So I think you just try to get these guys to stay a little bit later in the film rooms and hope they can get a little bit better there. So short answer would be I would not make the change, but I would understand why people are asking because they're not getting very good play from their inside linebackers
Yeah.
at all right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of things. And the next question actually comes, well, several questions as you might imagine about Devin Bush today. One from John Pennington about Bush and a little bit broader as well. It says, "Hello, Dave and Alex. Do you guys think it's time to put Bush and Dan Moore on the bench? And do you think Green should be in this conversation?" To the latter point about the offensive line, injuries may kind of force their hand to playing the guys who are just healthy and available. To that regard, now of course Zach Banner could come in, and you could shift more parts around. I don't think Moore played on first glance terribly poorly against Detroit, so still would not make a move there. Green, I would not, and again, the interior injuries may not even give you that choice, even if you wanted to. And then with Bush, again, I'm a little mixed on it, but I just want to at least make the point that I don't think Bush is playing well. I think some fans and just overall the fan base is focusing too much on him as if he's the only issue, and he is certainly far from the only issue.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if you said, "Look, that is just him," but it's not. I mean, the middle of that line has been good. As we mentioned too, Schobert's has had his issues. Man, the tackling sometimes in that secondary hasn't been great. I mean, Minkah hasn't been great back there when it comes to some tackling either. And you don't, Edmonds. I thought Edmonds had an okay game,
Hmm.
overall, but he wasn't totally innocent in there. So it's more than just one player here. And as far as Moore goes, I thought overall, and just running through the all 22 the first time on the offensive side of football, uh, as I said on the podcast this morning, the TV tape, obviously the Green snaps, weren't good, and Green had some struggles there. I think after that first opening drive for a couple, but I thought overall that the unit kind of settled down, and even when Hassenhauer and Joe Haig came in there, it wasn't off. That line played well enough that they could have won that game,
Hmm.
easily. I think there. So now, we're going to see what happens with the guards with Trey Turner and Dotson and those ankles. I mean, there's a very good chance that those two guys might miss the game against the Chargers, and then what are you going to do? More, yeah, you'd like to have that holding call back, but how many times is the guy going to get called with his hands inside like that? I forgot to go back and look and see if you could see a serious tug there. The TV angle, I don't think not so much. I
No,
had to go
there's a
back and look
replay
at
of that should give you a good view into that, I think.
well, one of the TV angles. I mean, you see the hand inside, but do you really see him tug him that much or no?
I see him grab, but as I said on the
You see
pod,
the grab, but
right.
you don't. I don't. Do you necessarily see the tug?
No, I don't. But whenever those balls, those runs bounce to the outside when they're not designed to, and the defender's trying to get outside and he's getting grabbed because it's supposed to be an interior run, those do get called quite a bit. So I at least understand why it was called because the optics of it didn't look good.
Fair enough, fair enough. But look, at this point, you got so much invested in more right now, over there. I mean, what's your alternative to switch and put Chikwama Okorafor over there, and then either Banner or Haig at right tackle? You might not even have that luxury right now, depending on what happens with the injuries at the guards right now. So,
Hmm.
to the two most concerning things coming out of that game when it comes to the offensive line, I thought, was the snaps by Green and then the hold by Moore.
Right.
Because the Moore, that obviously cost you a touchdown over there, and then the Green snaps cost you definitely some good field position later in the game. That's for sure.
For sure. And then just the injuries, the obvious elephant in the room with that offensive line. I very much doubt Kevin Dotson will play against the Chargers. Turner, I don't know, but I'd be highly, highly surprised if Kevin Dotson played against the Chargers.
Did you see where Turner did? I haven't found where Turner hurt himself yet.
I haven't. I saw Dotson get rolled up on. I saw that injury, and you're right. He tried to stay in the next play, which kudos to him,
Right.
but he could not even. He couldn't even take a step. He took one step, and then he called himself off and took himself off the field.
Right, and I think because weren't they trying to go hurry up or something? I mean, I don't even know, as bad as it looked like it hurt him when he got off that field there. I'm surprised he even stayed on. But
Right.
yeah, I would be, and the great Dr. Mel just put a post up on that not too long ago on the site there, so people can read that if they'd like to. But it don't look good for him for sure.
Yeah, Turner, it might not have even been noticeable because I think it came. He didn't start the next drive, so it might have been something that he dinged and he gutted it out during the drive, and then came off. So I'm not sure if that's going to be obvious, but we'll go back and see where it might have happened. Next question, again, Devin Bush related question from Kevin A. Very disappointed in Devin Bush. We shouldn't pick up any option. Thoughts? I know Dave, you've been talking about that for a while, and I don't think
I got blasted for it at first too. People say, "Oh, you got to give him time," and all. I mean, what do people want now? I mean, he's got a half a season to turn it around. I'm not saying that he can't. So a good thing is you don't have to make that decision right this moment.
right,
So that's the best thing about the whole thing is you don't have to make that decision right now. But it certainly isn't trending in the right direction for him. He really is going to have to turn around these 8 games, and they need him to. If they're going to win, if they're going to win 4 of these 8 games, it's going to be because the linebackers play better inside.
right, yeah. If the decision had to be made today, they would not be picking up the option, and as you
Right.
said, he'll have to do quite a bit for that to change the rest of the season. Tim Chase says my cardiologist says that I should change teams but can't. Wish me luck for the rest of the season. I'm gonna need it. Yeah, wishing you luck, Tim. Wishing Steelers Nation luck as well. Here's a question we'll get to in a second. Go/27 says, "Good evening, folks. How yin's doing? Doing well. Thanks for being here again. Be sure to ask your questions in the chat below." Tim Chase says, "Because of the injuries, will they move Green to guard and put Hassenauer at center?" I doubt that, Tim. You don't want to move more people than you have to replace one guy. Green, of course, played guard at Illinois, but has not played it here in Pittsburgh. To try to do that for a rookie on the fly. I know Hassenauer is kind of more of a center than a guard, but I think to be moving too many parts there. So either Hassenauer will go to left guard. I would even, if you have the option, assuming you do, put Joe Haig at left guard. I think he played really well at right guard. He's played left guard in the past, and I think he's just a bigger body, a better run blocker. So I would be interested in that idea. But regardless, Green should stay at center.
I agree.
Yeah.
You need him to get as much experience there as you can, and a couple games ago, at least he turned a little minor corner there. So absolutely, you need to keep him at center.
Yep. Tim Chase again says, "What does it tell us when Ray is by far our best receiver? Sunday, hugely disappointed in Washington." Yeah, Washington did have 6 targets. Of course, had the touchdown, but it was a little man's game at receiver, and you were hoping for a big completion downfield from Rudolph to Washington. Again, you got the touchdown off of blown coverage, but you're disappointed you couldn't complete one of those vertical passes.
Absolutely.
Ma-
This team misses those explosive plays, man. Just
yeah.
2 yesterday, 3 if you count the pass interference one, and one of the other 2 was a scramble by Mason Rudolph. Those kind of things I wouldn't think that you could count on every week.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, Mason Rudolph, the longest rush of any Steeler this season, 26 yards. Kind of crazy to think about. Muhammad Al
Are
Ali,
you are you
hmm?
surprised by that? I
That
mean,
he
I,
has the
I guess
longest rush. Yes.
I mean that it's actually Mason, but the length, I guess.
Um, I'm honestly not.
Obviously, you're surprised it's him that owns it,
Yeah,
but
I'm very surprised. I think Mason's surprised it's him. I mean, as you said, we had a discussion on the podcast this morning. Najee Harris was not going to be a big play, explosive play runner. So I'm not. I mean, obviously, you'd like to be longer than 26 yards, and Harris is long. This season's 20. I think the second place is Claypool with 25. But I
do
guess I'm
they
not
have the
shocked by it.
shortest,
I
longest
was.
run of the year?
We can look that up. You may look it up now. I think I can do that right now.
If not, it's got to be close, right? I mean, they've got to be one of just a handful of teams that don't have at least a run for 30 yards on the season, I would
Let's
think.
find out. ESPN, and I assume these are updated through week 10. We'll see if Pittsburgh's at 26 or not. They are. And no, actually, there's several teams that are lower. Atlanta with the
Really?
shortest long at 18 yards. Yeah, you'll see it on my screen here in a moment. Atlanta 18, the Jets 19, Saints 23, Bucks 24, Dolphins 24, Chiefs 24, Steelers 26. So they're lower, but not
Okay.
close to the bottom, believe it or not.
All right. Are you surprised? I mean, the Buccaneers, I guess it's a little bit of a surprise, but they don't have really any hugely. I don't know. Ronald Jones. What's the status of Jones lately been? Has he been banged up or what?
I can never figure out a Bruce Arians backfield. I know
Right.
there were
It's
trade
like
talks about him. Fournette's been the
like a
guy, though.
Belichick backfield.
Right.
Sometimes you don't know who's going to be the running back week to week.
Right. Muhammad Al Ali with a $5 super chat. Appreciate it. Says, "Hey guys, love the content. Why do people think that drafting a first round quarterback will automatically fix this team? There's going to be a lot of holes." I haven't heard anyone say it's going to automatically fix this team. I hope no one has that thought. But I mean, when you lose your franchise quarterback, your next goal is to find your next one. And usually that requires a heavy draft capital investment in one. So, I mean, predictably, when you talk about the future of this team, the post Ben era, people are going to gravitate towards trying to find the next franchise quarterback.
Right, and there is no guarantees. I mean, look at all the first round quarterbacks every year, and how many just fall off. So, I mean, quick too. I mean, here we are, just a few years removed from Sam Darnold, and boy, name them off. I mean, there are quite a few of them that just because you pick them don't mean they're a guy. And look, I obviously I thought Sam Darnold back when he was a junior. I can remember late in the season think, man, that kid needs to go back to school. But in the same breath, I did like him coming out, and I thought he was a first round quarterback for sure. But I mean, just goes to show you, you scout them one way and you get them into the league and get them up to speed and playing against some of this other speed. And once defensive coordinators get a hold of them, start figuring them out, you see how things can twist. And I mean, Sam Darnold's really now at this point. I mean, he's got 1 foot out of the league, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
1.5, maybe. Yeah, it's real close.
yeah, 1.5. It's not far from. He's going to be. I mean, obviously, the next step will probably him being a backup But I mean, he's not. His days as a higher paid starter are probably over with now.
Yep. It's tough. And yeah, there's no question that it is at best 50-50 proposition in finding that next franchise quarterback. Pittsburgh, of course, did that with their Rolodex of names from the Bradshaw to Ben bridge there, which was too long of a bridge. But
I tell you, you called Mac Jones right. You had a good pulse on
yeah,
Mac Jones. You know, you
he,
really did.
right. But it is only half a season. And so these
Right.
guys go up and down so much that it is hard to judge. But yeah, I was a big fan of Mac Jones, and he's making me look smart for once.
Right. I didn't. I don't think I wasn't hugely fan of a lot of them there, but and obviously didn't think the Steelers would draft one, and they didn't. But so far, Mac Jones seems like he's handling it
Yeah.
okay.
Now he is in probably the best situation of these rookie quarterbacks as well, so that certainly does help. But yeah, point taken. Go slash 27. My only question: what was going on with our D line to make them so awful for most of the game, and how did they suddenly switch from turnstile to a brick wall at the end? A very good question. I'm gonna do a video on that. It'll probably appear on Steelers Depot tomorrow morning before it even does on the YouTube channel because I'm gonna get it done so late tonight, and I don't want to post videos at like midnight or something like that. But I mean, the short answer is that they were adjusting to the Lions' motion and 13 personnel better. They were not doing that well earlier. The Lions would take their six offensive linemen and shift them and motion them, and Pittsburgh's responses were kind of chaotic and poor and late, and really caught them, not being gap sound. So I know when Mike Tomlin talks about tackling being the number one issue for the run defense. To me, it's not the number one issue. It was an issue, but I think just from an assignment alignment standpoint, Pittsburgh was really poor up front, and it created a lot of chaos right before the snap of the football.
It really did, and I know you have some quotes from Schobert and Cameron Hayward on that from after that game as well too. So I look forward to that film room as well in the morning because I know you had the all 22 from it.
Yeah, I just went through and I have a list of, my goodness, like 8 or 10 plays to look at the good and the bad. So hopefully I'll do the best I can to make it concise and pointed, but I don't always do a good job of the focus of the video. But next question here comes from Dusk Thunder 9. I know the tie is disappointing, but in general, a tie is better than a loss, right? And is it possible for the tie to help us rather than hurt us? I mean, yeah, in the technical sense, of course, a tie is better than a loss, and you'd feel slightly better about tying the lines than you do losing to them. You'd rather be 5-3-1 than 5-4. That's just objectively true. Is it possible the tie will help the Steelers? No. I mean, a win would have helped more. So, I mean, again, in tie versus loss, technically the tie is better, but it's only slightly better.
Yeah, I don't find any positive in what happened Sunday at Heinz Field.
Me neither.
I don't find any positive in that.
Yeah, same here. Let's see. Steelers freak. Are either of you willing to discuss if this team will need the offseason to fully address its issues? I think we're willing to discuss that. Dave, do you agree with the assessment this team needs the offseason to fully address its issues?
Do they need the offseason to fully address their issues? In other words, to turn it around this year?
I think he's saying,
I don't understand. I don't.
are the issues they're having fixable this year, or do they need new personnel this offseason to actually fix the heart of their problems? For example, I know you talk about the need for a burner on this team. That's probably
Oh
something that
yeah,
cannot be addressed until the offseason.
right now. Yeah, I mean, you're past the trade deadline. I mean, what
Sure.
you have is what you have now. So I mean, obviously, once through the draft and whatever. I mean, this team's never heavily active in expensive free agents, and I wouldn't expect that to change. Even if they free up a lot of that cap money, they might go uh, slightly more aggressive than they normally do. But I don't think they're going to go out there guns and blazing there. And what are you going to do at one of the cornerback positions with Joe Hayden if he's out of there? You're obviously going to have a hole at safety, right? You if indeed you lose a guy like Edmonds, what's going to happen with Stephon Tuitt? Past this season, what's going to happen with Tyson Alu?
Hmm.
Yeah, he's still got 1 year left, but might that be it for him because of his age and all? And then look on the offensive side of football. Obviously, quarterback James Washington odds are probably good. He's not going to be back. Juju, there's a decent chance that Juju might not be back. So that's a lot of stuff that you have to fix. Building a list and don't forget inside linebacker on top of it.
Right. But do you think those issues, the Steelers' biggest issues, can they be fixed throughout the course of the season, or are they so problematic and so unsolvable now that they will have to be addressed in the offseason.
I mean, this team I think at best is going to be a 9-win team. Maybe 10, but they obviously going to have to win some games. No, I don't think they're going to fix
Okay.
everything that they need to fix this season. No.
I think I think some of their bigger I think some of the issues certainly can be fixed. I think the tackling, I think the alignment, the assignment standpoint, I think the offensive line play, all are solvable this season. So I might disagree slightly on that. Certainly things like trying to find a burner receiver are not going to be fixable and solvable, but I think Pittsburgh is capable certainly of playing better than they currently are, even on this lossless streak. Next question comes from John Horvat. Hey, John. Says, "Hey, Alex. Happy Tie Monday." Yeah, there's where it rings off the tongue. Happy Tie Monday. Noticed yesterday that Mason's throws seemed to not have a lot of zip on some of them. Seems he was holding back. Do you think he was playing scared? No, I don't think he was playing scared. I think his composure was actually one of the more impressive elements of his game yesterday, especially against pressure and blitzes. But some passes certainly did seem to float, but I don't think that's indicative of him playing scared.
No, I don't think he played scared. I just think he had some accuracy issues for sure, and touch issues. I don't know how much the rain played into that. I mean, they gave him an opportunity to kind of use that, I think, as an excuse in his post game press conference. But he wanted to take the bait, but he didn't. In that, there's a good 5 or 6 throws, obviously that he wants to have back, and I think the ones look, if you want to talk about almost interceptions, we could run a counter on SteelersDepot.com for Ben Roethlisberger and piss a lot of you off, by
Hmm.
doing that. An almost interception that hits the ground is called an incomplete pass. All right. So, yeah, he almost had a couple of picked off for sure. The one that you highlighted, Alex, later in the game, uh, just an unnecessary throw more than anything because of the down distance and portion of the game. If you complete that, what do you gain there? All right. So, luckily that fell incomplete. So we just talk about it as an incomplete pass. Now, the other throws that he obviously would want to get back. The one that he overthrew to Balaj that obviously was intercepted. The one that he skipped hop to Ray kind of reminded you a little bit of that throw over to the left side that really essentially got him benched a couple of years ago
Mm,
against
yeah.
Cincinnati, I
Yep.
think, early in the second half of that game. That's what that throw reminded me or harkened me back to was where was the confidence maybe to drill that one in there for sure. I mean, that was the most egregious miss that he had by far. I mean, it was something that a wide open guy that you throw it into the dirt on. I mean, I don't know how that can't be the most egregious throw that he had during the game. And then the other one I kind of view was that late that late slant, and you and I talked about it on the podcast this morning, saying, "Boy, I can't wait to watch the all 22 on that." It was him and I think the blame both goes on him and Deontay. I think he expected Deontay to keep on that same angle and not
Hmm.
kind of pause once that linebacker cleared his face there. And I think Mason expected him to go up at the angle there because that middle of the field linebacker has his back turned and he's walling off the other side. So there's no reason not for Deontay not to continue on the original angle, and I'm willing to bet that's what Mason was expecting him to
Yeah.
do. And boy, if you look at that on all 22, what happens if Deontay catches that one?
Yeah, it might be a house call. I think that's what you had said, right?
It sure looks. I mean, if not, that's that's 30, 40 yards. You're in field goal range, I think.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was overtime? Was that overtime?
when was it, Alex?
No,
It
I
was
didn't mean to
late.
put you on the spot. Yeah, I knew it was late. I couldn't remember if it was fourth quarter or overtime. It was a third down play. I believe would have been certainly a catch, a conversion, a big chunk there. I don't remember if that was overtime or late fourth quarter. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
that
I'm drawing a blank
pulled
here.
up.
I
Okay.
pulled up the
Well,
play. I guess I got so much pulled up on my desktop right
mhm.
now, but
Well, let me just quickly go to the next question because I can answer it pretty quickly, and then we'll come back to
Do
that.
you,
John,
do you agree though, from what you've
I
seen
do.
though, that was a miscommunicate? Or if anything, it's a miscommunication between the two. That if you're going to assign blame, you probably need to assign blame to both of them.
Yes, I think that's fair. Johnny Holder says, Alex, do you think the Steelers have any chance to beat the Chargers without TJ? I'm always hesitant to, say No to those 100%ers any chance. There's always a chance, but certainly it'll be that much tougher when arguably your best player or top two, players not playing in this one, and really the defense has relied on the play of its studs, notably Watt and Hayward, and to some extent Minka to be the guys on this defense the last couple of weeks. And so when you lose one of those big guys you're relying so much on, even more than usual, your chances, of course, decrease.
Man, I don't. I mean, this thing escalated quickly, didn't it? Didn't
Hmm.
it? Going into Saturday night,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you get the news that Ben Roethlisberger's on the COVID list, and then get into the game on Sunday, and boy, they just started falling, didn't they? Joe Hayden, both your guards, and then boy, you see TJ grasping at his knee the way he did. I think everybody, so far so good. Obviously, with the news, it doesn't look like it's season ending, but it might be enough to keep him out of this game. It's going to be tough to overcome that. There's no guarantee that Chase Claypool makes it back from that toe injury this week as well. And now, what's going to happen with Minkah? Minkah on the COVID list. Is there enough time for him to clear? I mean, there is enough time, but will he clear
Hmm.
by Sunday? Who knows at this point? So yeah, there is a good chance you'll be without more than just T.J. Watt in this game, and yeah, that's gonna be tough to overcome.
And of course, Ben, no guarantee to play either. I think
Right,
some people kind of
right.
assume he'll come back, but he's symptomatic, which is going to make that protocol lengthier, likely. And even if he does, even if Mika comes back, you lose practice time, and I mean, those are going to be obvious issues. And you're traveling, so you're trying to leave early. But if there's any silver lining, the Chargers aren't quite as good as we thought they were. They had a loss to Minnesota yesterday, so they're not playing lights out either. No one in the AFC is really playing lights out right now. C
Exactly.
Rex says this defense is having major problems. This is shocking. Didn't expect this at all. I thought offense only would be our problem. I know Dave and I both expected this defense to take a step back, but when you factor in the injuries to it and Alualu, expected those guys to be playing week one, and obviously those guys have missed all, if not or most, if not all, the entire season. So there was some of that to be unexpected just because of the natural course of the season. But yeah, I think obviously this defense has to play better than it has.
Alex, I think that play that we were talking about was the 3rd and 3 at the Pittsburgh 48 with 4:37 left in the fourth quarter. Does that
Okay.
sound right?
That sounds right. So late fourth quarter, the game was tied at 16, so that could have won you the game in regulation, obviously.
That one play probably could have put you right in field goal range right there to win it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Lions were going to mount a comeback through the air in that game, considering how terrible they were throwing the football. But Dave, this defense taking steps back, obviously impacted by the injuries. But are you surprised by the level it's taken a step back of?
You know, I thought they were going to take a step backwards this year. I wouldn't have thought it would have been in the run game to the tune of 228 or 29 yards like it was. I kind of envisioned maybe the passing game uh, being, you know, being the main cause for them not, being as good of a unit as they were last year, and that's what makes it even worse. Worse, I think, at this point here is man, you give up 220 something yards to a team that has a quarterback with an oblique injury that noticeably they did not want him to throw the football, you know, and you give up still that kind of yardage to just a heavy set personnel grouping on top of it there. That's concerning. So yes, I did think that the defense was going to take a step back this season. I didn't think we'd be talking about it as bad as it was against the run on Sunday, and especially not to an 0-8 team at the time.
Yeah, their run defense is surprising, but again, when we entered this year, we all thought Tuitt would play week one or come back very
Mhm.
early in the season. We thought obviously Tyson Alualu didn't know he was going to miss, all but 5 quarters of the season, and so those are two monumental losses up front that have certainly impacted this run D. This person, that's their username, says felt like the plan was to feature Ray Ray, who isn't starting receiver talent, perhaps because Rudolph has had more time with him running scout team. I don't think it's because of that. I mean, McLeod's role has been elevated post Juju injury, and you lose Claypool in this one as well. Did not play in this game, so I mean, eventually snaps have to go somewhere. I mean, McLeod was involved a good bit in the Jet game, which is kind of more his speed, and some of the passes were not always because he was the primary receiver, just how the play unfolded. So I think you couple all those factors together. Of course, it was surprising to see McLeod catch 9 passes, but I mean, I don't know if it was the plan to feature him in the pass game, at least the way that he ultimately was.
Ooh, I didn't know we would see that kind of the offense run through run through him the way that we did. I got to give him this, and we talked briefly about this on the podcast this morning. that little fella took a heck of a hit over there on that cover two hole shot over on the
Hmm.
sideline, and he hung on to it for sure. So all he can do is go out there and do what's asked of him, right? And he did that. But the started the season. If you would have told me at any given point that Ray McLeod would have led your team in receiving in any given game, I would have told you something probably had gone as wrong as it has. Juju out for the season and Claypool missing a game or something like that. So once again, I just didn't like that it had to get to that point where the offense has to run through a guy that's just not someone that I think defenses worry about going to kill him.
Right. Tony Badalmente. I butchered that. Tony B. I'll say it that way. Mason did just okay, but two of our best players made mistakes, Johnson and Fryermuth. That was the game when it came clutch time. Yeah, I mean, I think Rudolph was below average, but I'm not gonna get into the semantics over about his performance in that comment. You had two overtime turnovers. The fact that you turned the ball over twice in overtime and you did not lose is a minor miracle, but that robs your ability to of course, win the game. And if you don't have fumbles there on either of those plays, you have a chance at least to kick a field goal. With the way Boz is kicked, you have a good chance to make that field goal and win the game. So, yeah, those were incredibly costly plays.
Look, make sure you evenly distribute out the blame for this one. I mean, this was as good of a team law or team tie as I've ever seen, and I haven't seen many of those, right? I mean, we talked about the run defense in here. We talk about Mason missing 5 or 6 throws in this game. The turnovers. I mean, I went back and I couldn't stand it, Alex. I had to look at Pro Football Reference and find out since Mike Tomlin became head coach how many times there's been exactly a turnover ratio of 3-0 in a game, and how many times the team won with these with the
Hmm.
zero takeaways in there, and it's like 20 something times out of what did I put 200 something times. So the fact and the two of the times that bucked the system with a 3-0 turnover margin, the Steelers were two of those
Oh,
times. Wouldn't you
really?
go figure? Yeah, 2000 and what did I put? 2000 and one time against the Packers and one time against the Titans. I forget the specific years there, but the fact that the Steelers managed to get a tie in that game, losing the turnover battle 3-0, was quite quite the accomplishment just the same. And boy, if you just have one less turnover in that game, you probably win it, right?
Hmm. Yeah, especially if we could magically wave our wand and say those overtime fumbles, one of them did not happen. Now with Firemouths, I don't. Let me ask you this: if Firemouth does not fumble there, do they get another playoff? Is there enough time?
That's a great question. I don't.
They have to spike it. They don't have time to get the field goal unit out there. So it's a
Yeah,
question of do you have time to spike the football with 8 seconds?
I don't know. I don't know. Prob I don't know.
Maybe
I
there
don't
was
know.
more than
I'll
eight,
have to
but
go back
about
and look
10.
at that.
Yeah, I mean, it was about 8 to 10
I think you
seconds.
probably. I felt like they had a chance to spike it. Maybe. Yeah.
They had a chance. I mean, there was a chance, but do you think they actually get it off in time? I don't know what the other routes on that play were. I don't imagine there was someone running deep downfield, but I don't know for sure. I haven't gone back and watched that play yet.
Per Pro Football Reference, since 2007, Alex, there have been 278 games. If I used all the filters right here, you're a pro at getting around
Yeah,
on
you're taking my stats of the weird over there.
I do wish they'd make those drop down menus.
Oh god,
Sometimes
they're terrible.
it's like trying to read a foreign language to go through all those there. And I try to bookmark certain ones, thinking that I'll go back to them and I'll forget where my bookmarks are and what they're bookmarked in there. But since 2007, there have been 278 games. That sounds about right. 278 games that have ended with a exact 3-0 turnover margin. Only 25 times did the team with the zero takeaways win the game.
Wow. And Pittsburgh,
24 out of 278, and the Steelers are
two of those.
responsible for 2 of those since 2007.
How about that? Mr. ABS says I thought it was 15 seconds left on that play. There was 15 seconds on the snap of the football. By the time it ended, there were 8 seconds left with a running clock there. If he doesn't fumble, you get about 8 seconds by the time that play is kind of done and guys start getting up. It's really tight. It's really close. Could they have done it? My guess is yes with a second left, but we'll never know, obviously.
What was the timeout? The Steelers had used their second timeout after 36 seconds, right?
Right. Yeah. And they had used it on before the Lions field goal. I think Tomlin went to ice the kicker, right? And so that was something in hindsight you kind of wondered, should you have done that? If I'm remembering that situation correctly.
I'm trying to figure out. You say they use okay. Timeout number one at 4:08 of overtime.
And that was prior to the Lions 48-yard field goal. Is that
Yes.
okay? So Tomlin did ice it. And obviously, you don't. I mean, you never know.
You can't. Yeah, you can't. It does no good to have the field goal kicker make the kick and you hold on to it in
Right.
your pocket there and not have the
But
chance to
there's the
ice it.
question of, does icing even work? And I think there's a lot of debate about this. Calling a timeout in that situation even impact the kicker, which is, I think, up for debate.
Okay.
Matt Nagy,
And
for
then they
example,
use
did
their
that
sec.
against the Bears, and he probably should have had that timeout back.
Right.
Right. And they used their second when with 36 seconds left.
Looks like at 29 seconds left.
Okay.
After
Gotcha.
after the play at 36, Rudolph passed short to Najee Harris to the 49 for 7 yards. Timeout number 2 by Pittsburgh.
Okay. Rob James had a comment deleted, but he says, makes me appreciate Ben that much more. I assume that's in reference to the play or lack thereof of Mason or the offense in general. And yeah, I think Ben's had a lot of problems this year. Ben has not always played well this year, but if Ben plays that game, they win that game and probably do so in regulation. Next question comes from John Horvat. Been reported that Tomlin doesn't want to start with a rookie quarterback next year. Are there any prospect exceptions in the draft that you think might cause him to reconsider if they fell to Pitt? I haven't done extensive search, Dave. You've done more, so I'll let you have the floor. But to answer the question, simply probably not, John. At least not in Tomlin's eyes.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just surface. I know more about obviously Carson Strong and Kenny Pickett than I do any of these kids right now. I mean, that's more. I'm further along on any players right now than I normally am in any years. So, but I'm not at the point where I say this guy's this bang the table. I will say this from, and I have watched all of them at this point, all the top ones. I don't know if there's anybody I'm standing up on the table for right now, and jumping up and down for in the first round, to be honest with you, and that includes Carson Strong.
Hmm.
So I mean, I don't know, I don't see one, or I haven't seen enough tape yet that lets me think that any one of these quarterbacks that a team would draft that you throw in there week one and roll with, and expect positive results.
Yeah, I'm with
Definitely,
you.
definitely not to the degree of what the Patriots have gotten out of your boy Mac Jones so far.
Yeah, and I don't think it's gonna change Tomlin's mind enough to fall in love with a guy that he thinks can be the guy right away. Tomlin has very rarely worked with rookie quarterbacks. You look at his whole history at Tampa. They had Brad Johnson. The same with his 1 year in Minnesota. They were, I think, starting Brad Johnson again. Actually, they played the late Tavares Jackson in that year, and he was really struggled, obviously. And so I think whenever Tomlin's been around those rookie quarterback situations, Duck in 19, it has not gone well. He has not had a first round blue chip prospect to work with, but that may just have clouded his judgment because his history is working with veteran quarterbacks, and of course, working with Ben his Steelers entire career. He's always been around known, established guys.
And I still think people still forget way back when Ben Roethlisberger was drafted too that the plan was not for Ben to play his rookie season really at all. They were going to go into that season with Maddox and Charlie Batch, and Batch obviously went down with the knee injury during the summer there, and moved Ben up to number 2, and then obviously get into that, what was it, the second or third game with Maddox injuring that elbow against Baltimore. And there you go. I mean, Kevin Colbert has made it known several times in interviews that the plan initially was to sit Roethlisberger his rookie season, and they might not have even drafted him had not, Mr. Rooney had stepped in and said, "Look, sometimes you can't pass on some of these talented kids there," and because they were going to, the
Sha
kid that went to the
Sean Andrews.
Sean, right? Wasn't that who they were
Mm-hmm.
kind of set on
Stu Cowher wanted, yeah.
at the time? And so look, I mean, they obviously did their homework on the quarterbacks that year, and they knew who Ben Roethlisberger was and all like that. But just merely drafting one, to answer the question, from where I sit right now, I will be pretty surprised if the Steelers draft a quarterback in the first round. Not saying they won't. There's still a lot of time to look at a lot of these kids and all, but that Glazier comment on Mike Tomlin, I believe it for whatever it's worth. I don't know it to be for true, 100% certain, but I do believe it.
I believe it as well, given how close of a relationship Glazer and Tomlin had. But if that's Tomlin's philosophy, well, when do you draft a rookie? You're going to have to, unless you just think you're going to find some guy along the way that's going to become your guy. But you're going to have to
Uh,
bite that bullet at some point.
I think what happens is a situation sort of like it was with Roethlisberger, where you get in a situation and you there's just a kid that you can't pass up, and you take him with the idea that you're going to try to develop him and not necessarily as a rookie,
Right.
and then go with a vet. Like the Steelers were going to do with Tommy Maddox that year. That's the way I kind of envision this thing going down whenever they do the next time they draft a quarterback in the
Hmm.
in the first round.
Yeah,
So
I think that's fair. I think not to, we have to be careful parsing the language, but Glazer said that Tomlin did not want to start a rookie, not that he wouldn't draft a rookie. He
okay.
could draft one, and as you said, the goal for Ben was to bench him for a year, and the way that Mahomes did in Kansas City with Alex Smith, the way that Rodgers did with Favre, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't want to say they can't draft one, but Tomlin does not want to start a rookie day one. It was my interpretation of the comments.
And a lot of these franchises too, and these head coaching staffs and general managers, they don't have time to be patient with quarterbacks, especially if they get one in the first round, because 2 bad seasons and they might be out of a job. you
Hmm.
know, and that's why there's always the rush to get this next kid going. Draft him and get him in there and all. And I don't think that's always good. For it obviously depends on the player and all like that, but at least with the Steelers, you have stability in the coaching staff that and general manager, where if you think the kid really needs to sit, you don't have to start the clock on him right away just because you feel like you have to start it to save your job, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So uh whenever the next time is, whether it be 2022 or 2020, whatever the next time they draft a quarterback in the first round, I don't think that kid would be a week one starter.
Agreed. 100% agree. Unless there's a Ben injury, the way it was for Ben in '04, and obviously he did not start week one either. John Pennington, Dave and Alex, how
Well,
long
why
will?
don't we just wait and get that Manning kid?
Oh, no, the kid in high school, right? That's going to be a
Yeah.
fresh. Where's he going to school? Is it Tennessee, Ole Miss? Where do you can he pick a place or
I
not
I
yet?
don't know if he's picked yet or not, but
Okay.
he's been all over the place. Everybody's clamoring for him, and I guess with good reason too.
Yeah. John Pennington, Dave and Alex, how long will this new quarterback, speaking of quarterbacks, the Steelers signed today, last on the practice squad? He has an arm at least. Yeah, that's James Morgan from FIU. Probably until that room is COVID clear with Ben and potentially anyone else there. But Ben's certainly the main focus. They want a third quarterback, so maybe a week for James Morgan.
What do you think about all this Twitter buzz today about Dwayne Haskins?
Ugh. Of all the things to talk about coming off a game against the Lions, the discourse is Dwayne Haskins' warm up passes. My God,
I
could
feel
we
I feel bad that we're even discussing this,
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's like
uh,
73 other issues to talk about, and somehow that's one of the top 3 stories of the day. I don't know. I wasn't there.
I
I
wasn't
I,
there
I think it
either. I
all
can't
sounds a
make
little
none of
silly,
it, but
but
it does sound silly. I'm ashamed that we're talking about it, but I figured I would bring it up.
yeah. I don't want to write about it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't know. I don't know if Matthew's writing about it in the morning or not, but I mean, talk about some non-stories here. I don't know. Again, I wasn't there, but if a guy's looking at his phone, I mean, to change his music or something, I don't think that's a sin. I don't think it is. Let's see. Jason Oh, how do you say that? Bodine? Did I get that right? I'm forgetting, but Jason says, "Hello, Daleks. What's with 53 in the high snaps?" Referring to Kendrick Green. Seriously though, with Minka down, do y'all expect more nickel dime against the Chargers? Quarterback Wilson 2022. I'm not sure who that's supposed to reference. Quarterback Wilson 2022. Russell Wilson, maybe. I don't know. Green with the high snaps. I don't know. I don't know if that was an issue of him being used to snapping to Ben, who's a little bit taller, or if they were, against blitzes or head up was a nose tackle. I don't know what the relationship was, or just bad snaps. I do not know. Nickel and dime will be dependent, generally speaking, based on what the offensive personnel is and does, not so much on the specific personnel Pittsburgh has, at least to the degree you're talking about, Jason. Pat Boy Savage, I got questions. Steelers are winning the Super Bowl. There's no question mark there. It might be more of a comment, but Dave, what do you think about the Steelers Super Bowl odds?
What year?
But
Not this year, right?
that answers it well. Yeah, I'm with you. Even
I'm
in
gonna I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guarantee you the Steelers will not win the Super Bowl
ooh,
this year. How's that?
that's big money you're going to put on that. I'm guessing, but yeah, even in a wide open AFC, this team can be competitive and they can get in the playoffs. But do I see them going to a Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl? No, I do not.
There's nothing on the tape or the analytics side
Yeah.
that tells you this team will be there for the final game in L.A.
Excuse me, Zachary Prospa. Good to hear from you. At this point in the year, which path do you think the Steelers take in 22? Keep Ben and build around him through draft and free agency, or draft a quarterback in round one and fill other holes and such as you can? It may be neither. The most likely one is probably the second one about them drafting a quarterback because Ben's probably not coming back. Even if the Steelers would like him back, he probably wants to just end up retiring. So I'm not going to say there's no chance, but I'm still working on the assumption Ben is not going to be a Steeler next season.
Yeah, I mean, never say never, I guess, but I'll be surprised if Ben's back in 2022. They need to bring in Matt Mummy, and they need to they need to run the air raid, and they need to go out and get maybe a guy like Mariota or something, one of these middle end that still has arm strength, that has the mind that can process running the air raid and stuff like that. That's what they need to do. I think it has a potential of being a very Neil O'Donnell like
Mm.
situation. I guess if any of you listening are old enough to remember that, it does feel like even if they did draft a quarterback. Now look, from where we sit right now, and this obviously can change. People are not going to want to hear it, but everything's still on course for Mason Rudolph to still be at least the week one starter. Now, what you do or don't do in free agency will go a long way in moving the mark there. Obviously, if they go out there and get a middle of the road or expensive quarterback, then that quarterback would be the week one starter there. But if they were to go out and for some reason draft a quarterback in any round, or I mean, really in other words, I would be prepared, you know, eh, for Mason Rudolph to be the week one quarterback, unless they go out and make some sort of a splash in free agency. So
Is there a veteran quarterback you have in mind that you would like to see? I mean, besides the Wilsons and the Rogers and those guys, but is there a more realistic option? Like, for example, I could see them signing Mariota. I would not really want them to, just because he can't stay
yeah,
healthy. And you're as soon as you sign him, you go, okay, what's our plan B? Because I know any
right.
quarterback can get hurt, but like with Mariota, you're gonna have to turn to somebody else at some point that season.
Yeah, and I hear you. And look, I mean, I know you've been high on Brissett, but that guy get a little bit up in the tooth as well too now, and
Up in the
uh,
tooth?
I mean, long in the
Oh,
tooth.
long. Is he old?
Long. Jacoby's on. How old's Jacoby now?
Like 28, 29. I mean, for a year, for a stopgap. I mean, the age doesn't matter to me a whole lot. I'm not even that high on Brissett. I mean, I just think he's a bigger guy, kind of in that mold of Ben to some degree. And you worked with Canada at the NC State, and I'm just kind of reading tea leaves there that Canada knows that guy, has had success with that guy, and could bring that guy in.
I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't given a hard look at the potential quarterback
Same.
free agents next year because we've got so much other on our plate right now. But let me pull up some of these names here that potential, I guess, free agents
Yeah.
here.
Tim Chase says Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle. I'm gonna pass on that.
I don't know what. I mean, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that route.
To me, the big names are the Tyrod Taylors, which I think makes a lot of sense. Good leader, good guy, mobile. He's had injury issues as well, but I think Tomlin would like him. I think he's a almost a 7.57 guy as well. He's I think a Richmond guy. Mariota and Brissett are the names that make the most sense to me.
I mean, Bridgewater, I think, is going to be unrestricted.
Yeah,
Taysom Hill, Dalton, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Cam Newton, Tyrod Taylor, Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Joe Flacco, Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, we're starting to
yeah.
get into the bottom of the barrel here. Now that's about the list right now.
Yeah, it's uninspiring, as it should be. No one's supposed to get super excited about it, but that's just the reality of the situation.
And then, everybody will ask, well, what's going to happen with Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers? And look, I don't know if you saw how much of that game you saw of Seattle and Green Bay. Neither one of those two were completing the football much past as far as I could fall down past the line of scrimmage,
Yeah.
So.
Todd Williams says Deontay played terrible. Bush is a liability these days. Agree or disagree? I don't think Deontay played terrible. I think there was the fumble, which was a terrible play. I don't think he made a terrible game overall. Then there was that miscommunication on that slant, which again you can probably put blame half and half on that one. Bush, yeah, I'd say is a liability, but I would disagree more so on Deontay's commentary there, Todd.
What was the comment about Deontay?
Says Deontay played terrible.
I mean, he didn't. It obviously wasn't his best game of the season, for sure. And that fumble was a huge and huge huge play in that game for obvious reasons. I mean, I don't think it was his worst game of the season. I mean, he's had some of those drop games, piling up those drops there. I mean, it's not going to go down as one that he wants to get a copy of the DVD or anything. I don't think.
It might have been his worst game of the season just because his other games were pretty good. I don't know if there was one that was worse, but I don't think he was still terrible in this game. He was not good.
Was that a drop? Was that a drop over there on that right side? It had to hit him right in the hands. I mean, the defensive back did play did play it nicely and try to play through the pocket and all, but Deontay was, a full head above that guy in the air with two hands on the football.
The one that was a little high over his head. Is that the one you're
I
talking
mean,
about?
he had both hands on it over his
Yeah,
head.
I'm just trying to think about what the play is. I'm trying to recall the play. Yeah, probably. I don't know if he got charted as a drop for that though. At least I don't think PFF did it for whatever that is worth. Tim
Huh.
Chase, to ask you a question about the changes to the defense, check out a video on Steelers Depot tomorrow morning. I'll explain that. Still kind of working through it myself. Raymond Rack says, "What do you think of the special teams play during the game? Boz was great. Still just too much inconsistency, too many issues with this unit across the board the last couple of weeks, and so Danny Smith has to clean that stuff up for sure."
Yeah, they didn't give him a drop for that either on PFF. They gave Pat Fryermuth 2 drops.
Two,
They gave
two.
they gave him 2
What
drops.
was the second? The first was the one on the flat in overtime. What on earth was this other one?
I'm trying to remember. I'm just reading them off here. 2
Yeah,
and Kalen Balaj. They obviously that one went right through his hands, so that was a drop. I'm trying to remember what they considered a second drop, unless they considered it the fumble. But it's clearly a fumble. So
right, but it's not a drop.
I don't know where they get the second drop from there.
Me neither. A couple more questions before Dave and I wrap things up. Appreciate you being here. A couple people talking about the need for a nose tackle. Yeah, I get that. Not gonna. No one's coming through that door though. I mean, it's week 11. No one's riding in. There's no cavalry coming to solve it unless Tua gets back healthy. Obviously, he's not a nose tackle. Carlos Davis coming back, but he's not great against the run. He's more of a pass rusher, which they do need and could certainly use. Russ Obenstein says, "What's going on, Alex and Dave? Misery Monday." Yeah, hey Russ, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And Bill made a good point about the timeout comment I made about overtime earlier. Tomlin didn't just ice the kicker. That timeout also stopped the running clock to give time for the offense. Fair enough. I get that point. Thank
Mhm.
you, Bilbo, for the point there. Let's see. A couple more questions. Trying to find one. Tim Chase. Anyone remember the Kent Graham days? Yeah. Who's your favorite obscure Steelers quarterback of that Bradshaw to Ben era? Kent Graham's a good pull there too.
Luckily, I used a lot of drugs during that
Okay.
during the
Coming in
80s.
hot there. That's the first. Didn't expect that response to my question about
Yeah,
Puppy Brister.
thank God for heroin, but
Okay. Oh my god.
I mean, it's hard to believe that I was at the game, one of the first game that they played in Jacksonville. That I forget what year it was
It's the
there, but it
Greg
was a
Lloyd
game
one.
that the Greg Lloyd game that he injured
Okay.
his knee and went down there on, and I did see a preseason game with Kent Graham in it as well too. A lot of people don't remember it. Sonny Bono, Steve Bono, Sonny Bono. I'm really showing my age there. That's a drugs really working from years ago. Sonny Bono, Steve Bono was at one time.
Mm.
Todd Blackledge wore a
Oh
Steelers
god.
uniform
Yeah.
at one time there. Yeah, let's not try to go through that again.
Yeah, for sure. I
Art
apologize.
Malone.
Yeah, Brister. I missed a super chat here from Jonathan Mason, so I apologize. I'll get to it right now. $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Jonathan. You're always in these chats, so certainly appreciate it. He says, as a big Devin Bush fan, it's perplexing to see him be a spectator or just plain slow to the ball. What gives? Seemed like it's a lack of want to. Yeah, I know someone asked earlier about the lack of effort with Devin Bush. I don't see that. It's very rare that I say that someone has poor effort or a lack of want to. I think that's really hard for us to try to quantify. But he's just not as instinctive as a Ryan Shazier or a lot of the Steelers linebackers have been over the years. And he's got to play downhill more. I got a clip I'm going to show when I can, probably tomorrow, of him backing away from a pulling block. If I think the tight end pulling around, he takes a step backwards. Man,
Mm.
you're a Pittsburgh Steelers off-ball linebacker. You got to play downhill. You got to play physical. I know he's not, a Ferrier or a Kirkland type of build, but you got to be a downhill physical guy, attack those blocks. And it just instinctually, it's not where it needs to be.
People got mad at me for pointing out around draft time how he wasn't a huge playmaker on stops, but at or behind the line of scrimmage, and especially if you look at his production against Big Ten teams during his college career, it wasn't there, you know. And Alex and I, probably two of the better podcasts we've ever had together, were spent talking about college film of Devin Bush there. So, yeah, him potentially not being a huge playmaker. I mean, we definitely, Alex say, well, did you see this side to side in speed? And yeah, I mean, I saw traits that got him drafted from an athletic standpoint. I still come time, that the pick was made, and after Alex and I had our powwows, that there was part of me that was wanting, where is the playmaking at, other than that sort of sideline to sideline stuff. And here we are in his NFL career right now, and it's still relatively early. But you better start seeing, as Alex said, you need to start seeing that downhill stuff, those game changing behind the line plays, or the robot Ryan Shazier robot coverage, where getting in a spot, intercepting a pass, and that kind of stuff there. And we're not seeing that with him. Now, he did make a good play a couple of weeks ago on that interception, against the Bengals, kind of drop middle of the field, cover two type
Hmm.
situation there. But we got to see a lot more than that, especially as an inside linebacker, as you say, that close to the line of scrimmage. Got to see him playing downhill a lot better than what the way he's been playing.
We do, and to me, it's more fundamental. Like again, the big plays are nice and necessary, but they're step two. If you can't play downhill on a puller, I don't care about the big plays you're going to potentially make. You got to do the fundamental things first. And I thought he did that in college. He's not doing that now, and so that's a surprising part to me. But yeah, he's got to play better for sure. And I think it goes back to starting with good fundamental football and then building off of that. Got a lot of quarterback names blast from the past. Scott Campbell, which I barely remember
Mm,
Scott Campbell. It
yeah,
sounds like you
yeah,
remember him. Jim
yeah,
Miller,
yeah.
Cliff Stout. Yeah, so definitely some names to try to forget some more. Tommy Maddox, Mike Tomzak. A couple more
Campbell
questions.
Campbell threw that touchdown pass against the Saints. That was it, to Swan, or I forget who? Not Swan. Was it Lips? And anyway, OJ, that was, I think, on Monday Night Football, and I think I think that one hit the ground. I don't think that one got completed, but he was given credit for it on that. They obviously didn't have replay back. I think I got that clip floating around on my Twitter feed somewhere on that. But yeah, that's a blast from the past too, Scott Campbell.
MW, draft Mr. Jordan Davis or other D line from Georgia, then get Armstrong, the Virginia quarterback. Yeah, I'd love to get Jordan Davis. He might go higher than where Pittsburgh's picking, but that is a big athletic man in that middle of that Bulldogs defense for sure.
Ooh,
Good,
they
good.
got some players on the
They do.
defensive
They
side of that
do. You can get
football.
that pro day. There's the whole house of that Georgia pro day
Oh
this year.
yeah,
Tomlin,
yeah,
Butler,
and they
everyone.
know Kirby quite well from over the
Yeah.
years as well too. You can count on them having a lot of people there in Athens for that pro day for
Yeah.
sure.
MW also says, is that a scheme that Highsmith is playing where he crashes hard inside and then giving up outside? I was taught keep outside arm free and turn runner inside lines was killing us. Running that, yeah, that was the 3rd and 9 play of the game, 12, that run left side. That's the wrong arm technique, but there should be someone to spill that to on the outside, and there was no one there. So I don't understand why Highsmith used that technique unless someone screwed up behind him.
Lane was in on that play, wasn't he?
He was on the tackle sort of, but I mean, he's playing on the it's 3rd and long. He's focused on the coverage. He's not.
Right, but I'm
He's
saying that was the play he was in on.
Oh yeah, that he
Wasn't he?
actually played. Yeah, his one
Yeah.
play of the game. Yeah, that was his one play. Yeah,
Uh,
and Millette, by the way, he played 2 snaps. I was wrong. He didn't play one. He played 2. But Norwood's still the new slot corner. I think it was more question I wanted to get to. James B said thoughts on Charlton's play so far. I thought it was, decent. I felt like he was having some issues again with that alignment, assignment stuff, some of the shifts and motions. I mean, all those guys seemed to have problems, but Charlton seemed to be a little more unsure than the other guys were.
Yeah, he definitely didn't stick out as he did in that last game on tape for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, but he'll be counted on.
23 snaps for him and 21 for Derek Tushka in that game after basically a byproduct of Watt leaving when he did and the game going into overtime.
Yeah, Tuska was playing more late. I don't know if that's coincidence or not, but he was playing more later in that game, for whatever that's worth, over
Mm.
Charlton. All right, I think it's going to wrap things up here, guys. I appreciate it very much. You guys being here. There'll be a replay of this on the channel and on Steelers Depot in a little bit as well. So appreciate you guys being here, hanging out with us. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and Dave, as always, thanks for being here.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you everybody for showing up. Peace and love, and have a great Monday night.
All right. On that note, again, thanks for being here, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.